Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Ghoulfriend Hour. I'm your host, Morgan Feza, and today we have a wonderful guest. We have Laura from the Gypsy Blues. Laura, I'm going to pass the torch to you and let you introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Laura, and yep, I own the Gypsy Blues, which is a spiritually based business. I would say the majority of my work is being a psychic reader slash healer, but I also make candles and teach candle classes and whatever other things my manic brain decides to want to create all of a sudden. That'll be on my website. But yeah, so for the most part, my work is like in the psychic healing realm right now.
Yes, yes. And her candles are absolutely fabulous. So we'll have social media links and where to get all those goodies at the bottom of the video and linked in the podcast. So pay attention to that. Go order some goodies. And you just recently completed it was a shaman class, right?
Yeah, so it was from like September or August until like March, I believe. It's all like a blur, but it was like a 6 month long thing with I gotta shout her out, Athena All Read. I don't even know how to say her last name, Athena All Red. She's just a magical human. She was my shaman teacher, mentor, friend. I love her. So if you're interested in any of that, go ahead, go check her out because yeah.
Yeah,
She also
so
does
tell
Reiki
oh, she does
too.
Reiki.
Yeah, so I started with Reiki training with her in the summer of last year. I did like 3 courses, got my level 3, and then I went right into shaman training. So it was like a 9 month, like it just turned into a 9 month journey for me, of learning all that. But yeah.
Good, good. So tell us like a little bit about that the shaman course. I mean, what does that entail? Can you kind of describe to people like when you say that you're a healer, what goes into that? What does that process look like and what does it all mean?
So shamans are, I would say the version of shamans that you'll see today, at least like in our country, for the most part, is like a modern shaman. So
Mhm.
you might think of shamans and like think of the civilizations that are still around that still do like the ayahuasca healing session, like not sessions, but like day long things and those sorts of shamans that are very ancestral, which is
Mhm.
amazing. But the version of the shaman that like I studied under and learned from, a shaman is basically just a healer. They like go to the other realms, they get help from the other realms, which are like angelic, maybe fae type creatures, maybe just going back to your ancestry, getting healing and help from those guides, and bringing them to the client, bring them to the person. So we can go on like shamanic journey for a client or with a client. We can lead that. Healing also, there are some shamans that like do health related things. They can see like what in your body needs healing. For me personally, I was already working as a psychic reader, like I was doing tarot readings and stuff, and then I was led to do Reiki, which is like energy healing. So it's just a step further than energy healing because as a Reiki practitioner, you're channeling in energy. It's not really coming from you necessarily. And then as a shaman, you're taking like your own ability and pretty much just partnering up with spirit and like healing and helping a person. So it's a little hard to explain sometimes, like because I get asked a lot like, well, what do you do? And I'm like, well, it depends on the person, like it depends on
Yeah.
the client and what comes through for them, what they need. So I never promise like to have like, I don't know, to like talk to your passed away loved one or to like see a health issue in you or whatever. It's about what spirit is showing and like what is necessary for you at that time. But yeah, a shaman's work is like just, it's just working with otherworldly things and just
Okay.
help. Yeah.
Cool, cool. It's funny. So you can have a good laugh at me because I just recently found out what ayahuasca was. and like me and my friend were joking about it on the podcast. And so like I made like a little TikTok clip it because I was like, I am such a prude. I have no idea what ayahuasca was. And I was like, I feel like I've heard of it. And my friend was like, she was like telling me all about it. So I posted this little TikTok and I wrote like IOWASKA, and all these people were like, spell check much? They're like, you must have really not known what this was. And I was like, no, but when I started to kind of like delve down the rabbit hole of like ayahuasca healing, and there were like some people that had created these like super trippy like videos of what it feels like to go through like an ayahuasca journey. Have you ever done ayahuasca?
No, and well, I don't want to say never, but like I personally, substances do not help me.
Okay.
For people like smoking and doing whatever, if they want to like do, as long as you're like tripping and doing all that responsibly, ayahuasca is definitely like a very, maybe when I'm older and don't have to worry about a toddler all the time, I can
Yeah.
go down to the jungle and like have that experience. But it is, I mean, it's a beautiful way to like connect directly with source. It really does help you like shed your ego, break it down. It's, yeah, from what I've heard and what I've learned about it, it can be really helpful. But I also feel like you can't just like go get it like and think that like you're gonna have a good time. I mean, it's the
Yeah, I
same.
always thought like from what I learned, I thought it was kind of like a one, like not like a one and done, but kind of like one of those things where it was like, I guess the angle that I was looking at it from was the like healing angle. Because when I was researching it talked a lot about of helping people with addiction issues and helping people who have trauma or, things of that sort, and it's supposed to, I guess, like open up your what's the word I'm looking for here? It opens up basically just that, maybe that third eye, like that spiritual connection, and kind of makes you see the truth. And it, like you said, you shed your ego and it just kind of takes you on like a journey. So I always thought it was one of those things where it was like you had to seek somebody special out in order to go through that process. And then I guess, yeah.
That's how it should be done, at least in my opinion, because it can be really dangerous to like, you know, kind of mess with substances that you don't know anything about. Like you really
Yeah.
should go have that full experience with like a shaman who is leading you. And a lot of the time they do this in like other countries. America, I
Yeah.
don't believe allows ayahuasca. So if you find it out here, it's like, good luck. Like have a safe trip. But yeah, I don't know a whole lot about it, so I'm sure there might be people that like listen and know way more or have done it. But for me, it's not part of my journey, not part of not part of me, the way that I do my work. But I do respect it as I mean, it's an ancient thing. Like there's a reason that all of these substances that like what they were back in the day, like that
Yeah.
they used.
They
So
had
we
like a
do.
medicinal purpose.
Yeah, for sure. So I respect that. And, I don't know enough about like ancient civilizations and things, or the civilizations that are still out there and just like living their lives and aren't part of our world. Like I respect those healers because there's a lot that we can learn from them. So also like as a shaman now, like I don't use that word a lot to describe me or my work just because like I'm just like a white girl. Like I don't want to ever like be I don't want to appropriate something that like people might have a different idea of, or if like their ancestral line comes from something
Yeah.
really special like that. So for me, it's just like that is part of my work. I do like take that name and like I respect it. But to do that, and we talked about this in shaman class too, it's like you also have to respect like the other people that came before you, like the people who opened up this way of living and healing. And like I mean even the Native American people, like we still just as Americans we just like stomp all over them, you know what I mean? And they have
Yeah. Because there's a
yeah
lot of closed practices um that I know are kind of like sacred, and like sage, for instance, it's probably the most simple one that I can kind of touch upon, but I feel like a lot of people will turn to sage for any kind of cleansing. And I know that there's been some back and forth on that being a closed practice and trying to find alternatives in order to kind of respect the Native American culture. So like that kind of thing, similar. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Because even when I first started like using Sage and stuff, I was like, should I be doing this? Like, and
Mhm.
I had a friend who is Native American. Like I texted her one day, and I was like, is this okay for me to be doing? Should I find it? Just like one person's opinion, but she was like, if you're using it for the right reasons, like I've seen a beauty brand like just send PR boxes with a bundle of sage and like some other like crazy, and I'm just like, girl, you know how much that like it was like a show
Mm-hmm.
instead of a real tool. So like when I use my
Yeah.
sage, I'm really doing something. I'm doing something for people, and I'm like, yeah, and you just have to, it all comes down to like respect. Like as much as you can learn about what came before you and like respect what's out there, that's the best you can do. And like I'm not not an expert on any of that, but I learn when I feel called to, and
Yeah.
I just honor whatever came before me because somehow I ended up here and it's pretty cool. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're doing something right, right? I
I
feel like you have a very balanced energy to you, which is like really nice because like I feel like you're just very calm, cool, collected, and like you are very respectful. Like you just radiate that kind of energy. So like good for you because I feel like there is and I talk about this so probably in every single episode that I've done. The fact that like I started this podcast, really the biggest thing was to educate and get different perspectives and opinions on cultures, diversity, religion, spirituality, different practices, and just kind of get help to educate the younger generation so that they're not just Googling and listening to 15-second TikTok clips where they're, like you said, with these PR boxes, they're not, first off, they're not even including ethically sourced stuff, let alone real stuff. So like I'm like I might catch some heat for that, but I'm just going to call it what it is. But I mean, that I will say like I think this has been a very long built I can't think of my words today. I'm telling you, I'm brain farting. It's just been a very long, thought out, like kind of slowly building my aggravation with the way that spirituality has become a fad. And it's like, it's one thing if you genuinely like feel called, like you said, feel called, or it's in your blood, it's in your ancestry lines, and it's something that you feel called to do, and you have no problem leaving that ego at the door, in order to grow and help other people. But when you're on TikTok smudging your house incorrectly, like with all your windows closed, and like you're taping like gemstones to your head, like I'm just like, what are we doing here? Like, what is happening? What is going wrong? Like, I just want to see like people be educated and like do things for the right reasons. So like that's like another big thing of mine with this podcast is really just making sure that like people understand like we do have to be respectful of the spiritual world no matter what the belief is or what you're kind of looking at, and like be smart about it. Like don't hurt feelings, don't be disrespectful, like be smart about it and don't use it as like as your 5 seconds of fame kind of thing.
Yeah, there's so much of that. And even like people who how do I word this?
I know. I feel like it's always tricky. I always get stuck and I'm like, all
Because
right, how do I not get in trouble?
yeah, so so even people who like do have gifts and they were like put on this earth to be some kind of a healer or a psychic or whatever, and like to lead people like to their healing and their light, or just like whatever, that clarity that people are always searching for. Like to use that like God-given or whatever gift you got from the universe, and then to just scare people or to shame people or to lead them in some weird opposite direction, that's when it gets really scary and tricky too. And if there's one thing that like bothers me about like, because I think it's beautiful that people are we're very Age of Aquarius vibes right now. And I love that for the world. And I think that there needs to be that connection to the divine. Like we all are worthy of it. It doesn't matter like your ancestry or whatever. Like you used to have to be like born into it.
Mhm.
And now it's beautiful that people are open enough to be like, searching for their own answers and their own guidance and like their connection with spirit, whatever that looks like or is called for them. And I love that. But there is a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of like people who aren't in it for the right reasons and just spewing nonsense or hate, or like, they're masking their hate with their like
Yeah.
psychic ability or whatever. And it that's one thing that really does bother me. But I don't speak on it a lot because, I am a firm believer that like you're gonna find the people that you need to learn from at the time you do. And so if that's like who you found on TikTok or whatever, then like you learn something from them, and then maybe you'll see something else, or they'll get exposed for something, and then you're like, oh snap, let me move this way. And so like there's always lessons we can take from people via internet or real life or whatever, but it's hard when it's an oversaturation almost. Like when I first started reading cards, even just a few years ago, like I had to search for like the community on Instagram, and that's really what my Instagram started as. It's just like a tarot learning page where I could like post all my things and follow all these accounts and not get it mixed up with my personal Instagram. And like it was very like just a self thing. And then I just started really getting into it. I started my business, and then it kind of just evolved from there. But like it was hard to find that community a few years ago, and now it's everywhere. So I think it's good and bad. And like you're gonna find that in everything. But that's why people just have to learn how to tap into their own intuition. If you're relying on like that TikTok person or that YouTube person to like give you the reading for the week or like whatever, like you shouldn't rely on anything external more than yourself. Like always check back in with you and be like, okay, did that even resonate with me? Do I believe that? Is that how I'm going to navigate my life for the month? Like that might not be a good idea.
Yeah.
That's the hard part. And we've all been there. We're all just searching for something like outside of ourselves. And I don't know. I'm just always grateful when people are brought my way and I can do a reading for them and hopefully give them something beautiful. And most of the time I never see them again because I just do readings. And that's great. And
Yeah.
I think as spiritual healers and readers and things, we just have to be in that space where we're like just giving them what they need and like just hoping that, they
Hoping
continue
for
on.
the best.
Yeah. I love how I get to see people again, but so many times I never see them again.
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, most of the time, like living at the beach and stuff, like people are passing through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's fine too. But that's why you just have such a responsibility to be like a good person when you're doing this work. So, because you just don't know what you're gonna leave somebody with. And then
Yeah.
like they go home to like Ohio and then they're like stuck with whatever shitty thing you told them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I definitely like I will say like in addition to what you said, like the blessing and a curse kind of thing, it is definitely wonderful because growing up, I've always had definitely been more sensitive to stuff, and I've always been interested in the spiritual side of things, spookier side of things. And there wasn't, like you said, there wasn't a huge community and it wasn't really talked about. I feel like there was a lot more stigmas and it wasn't as accepted. So I do think that in a sense, it's great that we have so many people that want to learn and are curious and, you know, could be gifted. And, I think everybody truly has the ability. It's just about, are you like, who's open to it and who can open themselves up to it. And I love seeing that like people are trying to make this a bigger community, make it more accepted, so on and so forth. But it's when you have those bad eggs that kind of knock you 5 steps back from the 10 steps you just took forward, in that progress, that it gets frustrating. And it's like, all right, how do we do better? And how do we use our platforms, your business, my podcast, paranormal investigators, their teams, you got churches and who, like, whatever else that is there to kind of educate and help people along their spiritual journey. And it's like, I just hope that our younger generation will kind of listen to those things and actually like be able to pick apart what is a good resource, what is a bad resource. So, but how did this all start for you? So from like a young age, have you always been sensitive and then just kind of flourished into it? Was this something that came about later on in life? Give us a little bit of an insight into your early journey.
So I have a lot of like holes from my childhood memories. But I do remember so I grew up Catholic, so it wasn't something that was like talked about. I mean, my parents were like, they weren't like strict Catholic people. Like my dad wasn't even really into church, but my mom was. So I didn't ever have that situation where it's like, I see this thing and your mom's like, no, you don't. I never had that because I would see little things and like I just didn't say anything or at least I don't remember saying anything because I just thought I was dreaming or I thought like it was normal. I was an only child, so I had this like wild imagination. Like I had imaginary friends all over the place. I just think looking back now that some of them were real.
Yeah. Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
so I just never said anything. And then my mom always says that like, because people ask her too, like, how did your daughter, like, why don't you have these gifts and your daughter does? Like, that's a whole different thing. But she always says to me that like I was really good with energy and like knowing if someone was like a good person or a bad person. And like there would be certain friends of like theirs or my friend's parents or whatever like that I just did not like, and she would like later understand like why, like okay, well that's because he was a dick. Like
Yeah.
my daughter
Just simply put, he was a real dick.
my daughter didn't like because he walked in the house wrong, you know what I mean? But at the
Yeah.
time it didn't make a lot of sense to everybody, and I think I was just a strange kid sometimes. And then I like grew up, stopped going to church because it wasn't my journey.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't my journey. And then I was a teenager and I kind of lost my whole sense of like spirituality and stuff. I was just like going through way too much mental health wise, and like I was just out running the streets and just being wild. And then I remember in high school we had this like cultural class thing. It was like just a random extra credit thing I needed, and so I just filled my schedule with like one of that, and we meditated in one of the semesters because we would learn about Buddhism, Christianity, other things. I can't even remember like the teacher's name or anything, but I just remember meditating that day and I was like, wow, what is this? Like that is cool. And I like started looking into like Buddhism and I kind of liked some of the things that was about. And I had a boyfriend at the time who would go to this like little Buddhist it wasn't even a church. Like they would like get together at like a little place, and
Okay.
like they were all in that religion. It's hard to
So it's kind of
explain.
like a little like makeshift like Buddhist pop-up shop.
Pretty much. It was
I love
weird.
it.
I didn't know where we were. Like his neighbor would drive us. It was weird. I went a few times and it was cool. And then like I said, I just didn't really have any spiritual. I was going through so much other things that like, like your spirituality just turns off.
Yeah.
And then my dad died when I was 19, and that's what really like set it off for me because I just knew that he was like out there somewhere, like
Yeah.
just around in like I don't know, my idea of heaven at the time or whatever. And I started like just seeing signs from him and like believing that like okay, so if he's able to talk to me, then maybe there's other things out
Yeah.
there. And then years later, not even that many years later, I was 19, then I was probably like 21, and I found like crystals. And there wasn't like a whole lot of crystal shops around here either at that time. So like I just randomly found crystals, and it led me down this whole journey of like, what does each crystal mean? What's a chakra? This crystal goes to what chakra? Like, what is this? Getting vibes. And then I just started looking into tarot cards all of a sudden. I don't even remember why. And I bought myself my first deck because you can buy yourself your own decks. That's a myth that people say you can't. Yes, you can.
Oh, okay.
Like,
All right.
who's waiting for someone to buy them a deck? I don't know. I think just buy your own. So I bought myself my deck and I started reading it or working with it like 2 days after one of his death anniversaries because I was looking back at my old photos the other day and I was like, why would I ever choose to like do all this stuff like when I was, I don't know, just the month of May is like really crappy for me because that's the month he died. So every year it's hard. And I just can't believe that that's when I started this journey. So it's all like, just life works in mysterious ways. Like I was definitely, I think a lot of the beginning, I was just searching for my dad. And then I just found so much more. And now it's just become so much of my work. And it's really been just a crazy, I don't know, that was a whole rant of a journey.
No. But seriously, I mean, that's what makes a journey. And it's funny because, and the reason I like to ask this for everybody that I bring on here is because I am I'm very conscientious about certain questions that I ask because I love to see the similarities between certain backgrounds and professions and what a lot of people's early lives have in common. Just kind of that psychological part of like just doing my research. And I just think it's really neat that most of the psychics and mediums that I've had on the podcast, they all say very similar things, myself included. And I feel like all of our journeys tend to start or even like are catapulted by the death of like a very close loved one. Um, because like I just had George the medium on. He was talking about his grandma Rosie that passed, and that kind of is what catapulted like his spiritual journey. When my grandmother passed, I like to say that's when I really truly started to kind of be like, diving into things. When your dad passed, it's not like an uncommon thing, and it seems to be like, people die around us all the time, but until it hits close to home, it doesn't start to make the wheels turn and go, okay, like where do these people go? Because when they're no longer somebody who's a part of your every single day and like you're so used to have that energy in your life, when that energy goes elsewhere, but it doesn't feel like it's truly gone, it makes you go, and you're kind of like, you kind of, I feel like, start to domino effect, and it just kind of leads to other things. So I just think it's neat to kind of hear your journey and your background story because it really does contribute and help paint the picture of how you landed where you're at now. Have you, like, with the whole like psychic journey, when you started kind of after your dad passed, what kind of like signs and stuff would you get from him, and what kind of like psychic experiences would you have?
So I remember always seeing like very like the normal things, like butterflies or cardinals or like bluebirds are his sign with me. So that started like right after he passed away. Definitely butterflies because they would just be everywhere. But some of it was like, at first you're like, oh, it's the month of May. Of course there's butterflies. Or, you know, it's not fun. Like, of course I found this random penny lying around, like I'm cleaning his house out or whatever. You know what I mean? So like things would happen and I would want to believe that it was him. And then sometimes I'd be like, you're really tricking yourself because grief is, kind of crappy like that. But I would see like dimes, nickels, pennies all over the place, random places. They'd find me like I have, I'd have one next to my bed in the morning. Like, where did you come from? Butterflies, birds. My mom used to get like songs on the radio, like old Michael Bublé songs that they wouldn't even play anymore. Just things that meant something to her. And then like I think it just evolved from that because the more I always tell people, like the more that you reach out and like if I see a bluebird and I was like, hey daddy, like he would come around more, like certain other things would start happening more. So part of it is like allowing yourself to believe that it's that person. Like, wouldn't you rather live in a world where like that kind of stuff happens, like where it's magical and like, even shit that feels unreal is real? Like, I'd rather let myself go there in my brain And even if like that specific time that bird was just chilling as a bird, like it still meant something to me. And so I
Yeah.
think that's really important about like living, you know, with intention, especially like after grief, like just allowing yourself to go there and be like, I know it's him. And
Mhm.
most of the time you'll get chills or you'll get like just this distinct, like I used to smell his cologne some places. I would like, you know, and certain people come in your life and they might have his name, or like I had a customer when I went back to work. I took like 3 or 4 weeks off of work. I went back to work and no, her son had passed away and his name was Michael and my dad's name is Michael. And like we just bonded and we cried and it was like weird. And like, so things like that, like you cannot mistake that. Like I almost quit my job. And then like the week I go back, I meet this lady who's dealing with like the same thing. And it was, I mean, it's just like the world is just beautiful when you allow yourself to go there. And like grief is hard and it's tricky, but it really can open you up to those psychic, like spiritual experiences. And everyone has the ability to connect, you know. So I think if it takes someone passing away for you to realize like, okay, maybe there is something on the other side of the veil that I can't see, but I feel it. So then it's like, what else is over there, you
Yeah.
know?
And it's funny because, like, I do always say, like, to friends or family or whoever, like, I knew just from personal experience on a normal day, like, I may not even notice a penny that's on the floor. I may not even know, I may walk right past it. But if there's a day where something sticks out to me more than the norm, it's like how, like, when you see that, like, there's no way it can't be spirit because spirit makes itself very known. So like it's so hard to explain it, but by feeling it, like there's definitely a difference. Like I feel like there's just a different energy. Like because like I'll use for instance like crows. So I have always had this weird a psychic actually told me once that it was I think her name is Morgan. She's like a deity or something of that sort. I'm not super educated on that quite yet, but her thing is like a crow. And it was funny because like I'll see crows all the time, I'll see birds, but there's certain times where like I will get a crow and it will squawk and squawk and squawk. And I'm like, I am ignoring that. Like, that is annoying. And until I acknowledge it, it doesn't stop. So, like, it just gets progressively louder. And it's funny because, like, I just had this happen the other day and there was a crow. It was on the roof of my house. And I'm like getting ready for work. I'm getting the baby into the car and it was like louder and louder. So I looked up and I was just like, can I help you? Like, I'm like, what? And like literally it just stopped and then it flew off. And that's how it is every time. But I think things like that are just a very good example of, you know, if you see something and it sticks out to you and it makes you think of something in particular, or it's a little bit out of the norm, then any other object would just kind of be sitting on your table. There's a reason for that. So, like, I don't know if you feel the same way, but like, that's kind of what I'll like tell my friends or I'll say to them is that like if there's a reason that it's sticking out to you, it's not for no reason. It's not just like a coincidence. Like there's something behind it. So like, you know,
Totally.
but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's like you said, spirit will make itself known for sure. And like sometimes we don't know what the message is. And I think like we can get stuck on like, well, what is this crow trying to tell me? Sometimes they're just being like, hey,
Yeah.
like, don't forget I'm here. And you know, that's just what it is. I mean, if there's like a specific message behind it or something, and that's where we can really like connect with our guides or our, you know, whoever, what spirit team. I call it like my soul team.
Yeah. I love that though. Soul
Yeah,
Squad.
we have like multiple, like from what I've seen, we all have multiple people, or not just people, but you know what I mean, multiple beings that are kind of like at our table, you know. So when you see like to get intentional with like, okay, I need you to show me like 333 3 days in a row, and then I'll take that new job. Like be really intentional if you're looking for a certain message, because if you're just being like, hey, can you show me you're here? They'll show you you're there. But then what do you want them say to you, you
Yeah.
know, and that's when like you might seek out like a reader or like a like do Reiki or something like that. Like you might seek someone who can channel the exact message in for you. But like a lot of us, and I, you know, sometimes I even do, like you just get confused on like, well, what is the message? And then for people with anxiety, it just like creates a lot more anxiety because then you're
Yeah.
like, a lot of people would probably think the crow is telling you you're gonna like, you know, something bad's
Everybody, yeah. Everybody
gonna
says that, but I don't think so because I never
happen.
get like a bad feeling. But I have no idea. Like, I genuinely was just like, I'm not even gonna try and figure this out. I'm like, I don't know. It's a message. I know it is. I'm like, but I don't know for what. But it happens to me all the time. And it's not like a scary feeling and it's not like ominous. It's just kind of like it's just like trying to get my attention, and then it's like once it gets it, it's like, all right, see you, girlfriend, have a good day, like, and that's it. And it's like, but it won't stop. And it's like if I got in my car and drove away, I kid you not, and I know this sounds totally kooky, but like I would probably get to work and there would be one on like the roof of my job, or like there would be one on the ground, like somewhere where like I wouldn't be able to deny it, and I'd be like, all right, like, can I help you?
Yeah,
Like,
definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's good that you know that it's not like and that's the other thing, you have to trust your own feeling when you see stuff like that or like see a like certain animal or whatever the message is
were
that they're
you gonna
sending.
say a black cat? Because I literally was just thinking about a black cat because I saw one the other day and I was like, I like that's one of the biggest ones. Everybody's like, oh, black cats are so bad if they cross your path. And I'm like, actually, did you know that they're good luck? And I'm like, in ancient Egypt, cats were actually a sign of protection and like good luck, good fortune. So
Yeah,
I'm
people need
like,
to look more into like where these superstitions came from. Like I
yeah.
sell like the angel number necklaces, and at my last event I had a 666 out and somebody was like, "Isn't that a demon number?" And I was like, "No, it just means transition and
Yeah.
transcendence and moving forward." And they're just like, "Oh, I thought it was like," and I'm like, "Well, I mean, for some religions it is, but
Yeah.
you got to think about why."
Well, and I
There's
think, like you said, intention. I mean, if you wear the 666, you can either put the intention behind it of it's transitional, or you can wear it with the intention of, all right, let's go, Satan. So, like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, like that's up to you. And I
yeah.
support whatever journey you're on. You know, I'm not gonna judge. So if you buy it and you're just gonna, go do your thing, then like go do it. uh so whatever.
Yeah, honestly, it's just it's all, and that's like what you said before, is it's about the culture, it's about looking into the background of stuff and just truly kind of understanding where it started. Because there's
Yeah.
actually, like, I mean, I wish more people would look at the history of stuff because there's actually a lot of really, really cool like background and like folklore and tales. Like, I just think it's super neat. But I'm also like, I feel like I'm like a spiritual nerd because like I love going down the rabbit hole of like, ooh, like what were times like in ancient Egypt, and like, what were cats protecting them against? Like, and then and then somehow I end up on Reddit, and then it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. You know how that goes, right?
Oh
So,
yeah.
but
Nerdy stuff.
have you ever had, so another question I love to ask, because I feel like you can't be human if you've never had a spooky experience. And I know, especially with working with like the spiritual realm, there tends to be some spooky experiences here and there. So have you had any kind of spiritual phenomenon?
So like before I started doing this work or after?
It
Because
doesn't matter, really, anything or anything memorable.
I've been really fortunate because I always come up from a place of protection and I always call that in. Like, I think growing up Catholic gave me some kind of like trauma. And I'm like, no shade or offense to the Catholics out there. Like, love you, JC, but like that was not my journey
Yeah.
because through the church, it really did scare me. Like it scared me to think about demons, scared me to think about hell. Like I really did not want to mess with anything spiritual at first because of that. And so when I first started being like, okay, I'm gonna take my power back and I'm gonna read these tarot cards, and like I literally had someone like message me in the first week and be like, that's like you're talking to like a demon, like you're like, invoking spirits. And I'm like, boy, bye. Like, please, it was like one of a word for my soul. I'm like, get out of here. Like, you're bye, thank you. So things like that would like scare me. So I always come from a place of protection. So I am really fortunate. I'll just start off and say that. But being in like this, you just hear about, like I have friends that obviously like do this work, and like, just sitting in someone's kitchen the other Sunday, and she was telling me she just basically did an exorcism during a Reiki session. And it's just like things that I have heard.
Okay, all right. Yeah, just a little light morning exorcism. Nothing too big, right? Yeah.
Like moved on like it was no big deal. And we're just laughing, and it's just, but like this is just like it's just normal. And so I personally haven't had any like bad spooky things. Yeah. I think what freaked me out the most in the beginning was like I had some kind of I don't even know what did it or who did it, but I went to like this workshop thing and my third eye just broke open. Don't know why, don't know how.
What did that feel like? I'm always curious because I've heard different when people have had their third eye open. Some people have said it literally felt like an old crusty door that you kind of like pry open, and then like once it's open, crazy stuff starts happening. And I've heard people say it feels like a pop and then like a warm rush of just like energy. So like I love hearing like what everybody's experiences are like when they open up that door.
I don't remember like it happening. Like I didn't have a physical sense at the time. I remember just like being like, oh cool, like I trust my intuition a lot more, like this was great, good night. And then that weekend, I want to say, or like that month at some point, I went to the bar with a friend of mine. This is like years ago. Yeah, a few years ago. And we went down there, and I was sitting next to someone at the bar, and like his mom was like coming through. And then I was like looking over at this lady, and she had all these butterfly tattoos, and like I don't know. So I don't know what in me had the confidence to like ask them if his mom was dead. And then luckily the wife of that guy was also like very intuitive and like could speak to like other spirits and stuff. So she like understood why I was like just trying to figure this out for my own brain, because like being able to hear someone and like know things was like really new and crazy for me, because at that time it was very early into my tarot journey, and I would just pretty much look at like the cards and the feelings I was getting. So this was like a whole different level of speaking with spirit. And one thing that like did freak me out, and I'll never forget the sound of his voice, was like I was working this event, and it was like a women's healing retreat weekend, and I was just like a vendor there for the first night, and I wasn't doing readings or anything. I was just selling candles and stuff. And I look at this lady from across the room, and her son is in my head, like in my head with like, it felt like static, like almost like he's in a radio. It was so loud, and it like took my brain over, and he was just like telling me this stuff, and he was telling me like, tell her I didn't mean to, tell her I didn't mean it. And I was like, the fuck are you talking about? Who are you? And get out of my head. Like it was so crazy. It felt like he was in my brain. And at that time, I just didn't have boundaries with spirits. So he was like all up in my brain until I told her. Like I walked across the room, and I was like, I keep getting this young man, like I hear his voice, and like he's telling me that like I didn't mean it, I didn't mean to. And her son had overdosed, and they ruled it suicide, and she knew that he didn't mean to, and she was wearing his ashes on her necklace. And it was just, yeah, so I cried. Like I still almost cry thinking about it, because I will never forget the sound of his voice. And that's probably the only time I've heard an actual voice of like with accent, and like he was like, you're speaking to me right now. And so that was scary for me. And I remember driving home that night, and I was like, I don't want this. Like if this is like this gonna be, because I think it was only like a month in between those two experiences, and I was like, if this is how my life is gonna be, I don't want to do it. So that was scary, I will say that. But then it went, and then it went away. And then like I didn't have any other experiences for like a long time. And I think spirit was just like, wow, we popped you open and you weren't ready, boo-boo. Like, let me back up real quick. And I'm so grateful for that now. But at the time I was like, did I just close my third eye again? Like, did I just like mess myself up? Like, should I have just been more confident in these abilities? And then, yeah, I mean, it took me like a couple of years to really be comfortable with like what I was experiencing. Now I just hear things and see things and I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Here it's a random Tuesday night. You know?
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely. So, have you ever had like oh Lord, I can't even think of what his name is. I want to say he was like a psychic medium, and he makes these really funny videos about like working with spirit. And he was talking about how like people would come in for readings and like have no idea that they had like a hex or like an attachment on them or something of that sort. And he's like, they would sit down and there's like what did he say? He described it as like stepbrothers. Like when he's like, I forget their names, Daryl or whatever. He like pops up behind. He's like, I think I can help with the pan situation. He was like, that's like what it reminds me of. And that's what he was like when somebody like comes in for a reading and they accidentally brought something with them and it's just like a black shadow that's like poking out from the back. And I'm like, I wonder like how often that truly happens. And like, is that something that you've ever come across?
So I often when people like sit down, I'll already see like their aura and just if they do have like little things. What I normally see the most of are women with miscarriages. I see that. So I see like little angel babies and like
Okay.
in the amount of miscarriages they've had, and then which is always really sad for me. And I don't always bring it up if it's not what they're there to talk about. So
Yeah.
like that I see um more of. And then yeah, I see like people's passed away loved ones, spirit guides, stuff like that. But they don't always make themselves as known
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes it's just not as much as like we want to talk to our like dad who's dead or whatever. It's not always what you're there for.
Yeah.
Like it's not the message that like I am supposed to be telling you today. So unless like if I see it and I don't, if they're not telling me to bring it up that they're there, or like if I feel from spirit it's just kind of like you're just able to see this and like let's get into what the real message for this person is. Like unless they ask me at the end like is there anybody with me, like most of the time it's like and I'm just well, but
There might be.
and sometimes it takes me longer to like tap into that. It really depends on the client and like what they are there for in their own heart and mind, and then in spirit's heart and mind. So
Yeah.
I'm good at listening to what spirit wants me to do, because some things are going to scare or harm a person more than they're going to help them. And so like I don't just like tell people all the good stuff. Like I definitely get into like what needs to be addressed and helped and healed, but I'm never going to leave you with like some kind of crazy bad thing and then like you just have to go deal with that. Like that is
Yeah.
not my jam. So it always, I think when you just call in from like the highest good, they'll show you what you need to see. And like, yes, you have these other abilities and you can see whatever you want. You can see that like little stepbrother shadow behind a person. So if it's not necessary to bring up, like don't bring it up. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just part of following your intuition and like learning from experience as well. Cause it can be hard when you're first starting to see all this stuff and you're like, you want to bring it up to everybody because you want confirmation for yourself that you're not crazy. Like I probably like if it happened to me now, I walked into a restaurant and I like or a bar and that dude's mom was talking to me, I wouldn't walk up to that guy and tell him that his mom's there. Like that's not. But in the beginning I needed confirmation for me.
Yeah.
I was losing my mind. Now I just know my mind is, she's on a different train and that's like it's
Yeah.
whatever. So it's all good.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what are like, okay, so I'll ask you two questions here. What is your favorite thing about your business and your gift and all of this combined, what is like your, if you had to pick one thing that's like your absolute favorite about it, what would that be? um or the most life-changing thing, just the more positive, one really positive thing out of this experience. And then what is one thing that is like, it just peeves you, like it is a pet peeve in this spiritual community, or what you're doing is in the business, and go. And
So
shoot.
my favorite thing is I am big on empowering other people and like giving them clarity and love and like helping people who don't feel seen to feel seen. I think I'm a good I've been through like a lot in my life and I'm still very young, but I have lived I don't know, it's just been a wild ride. And I feel like from my experience, there's not a light worker out there who hasn't like trenched through the darkness and like had to overcome some kind of crazy shit, like maybe over and over, or maybe just one good one was enough for their soul. But like for me, like your girl's been through it a couple times. So I feel like I'm really good. So I think I'm really good at helping people out of the darkness.
Okay.
Or just to empower them enough to like, and I love like giving people a sense of empowerment to use their own intuition and to like, yes, you're here with me, and like thank you so much for trusting me with your reading and like being open to like me being a channel for you, but I just want you to know that you can do this. Maybe not on like everyone's different, we might not do the same thing, but you can speak to spirit, you can manifest your dream life, you can like heal your trauma. Like this is all stuff that you can do. You don't just need a person to tell you what to do. So I think what I like to leave people with is like that sense of clarity and empowerment. And like I have like returning clients, and I have, I don't always just not see people again. But if I were to not see you again, I would love to know that I left you with like that feeling. So
Yeah.
that's my favorite thing. Um, and my least favorite thing is like people that are just out for like money, because this is like we were talking about earlier, like social media and stuff. Like people can use this gift, if they even have one or are really tapped in the way that they present themselves to be online, as like a way to make money or a way to get subscribers or like whatever. And I don't believe in that at all. And I like, we have to make a living. Like psychics definitely are underpaid sometimes. It is hard for us to make money at times. Like it's not an easy job.
I feel
There's
like it
no
requires a lot of energy, and nobody talks about that either. Like,
yeah.
3-4 readings. I mean, that's a lot. It doesn't sound like a lot, but like it is like draining. It's a lot.
It is, and like I just did 8 today. So
Oh,
like,
girl, I'm talking 3-4. You're like, oh, let me double that. Let me just
yeah,
double
I
that.
just last Sunday I did like 9 or 10. Like it just, so I'm doing like, at times when I do like tarot parties and stuff, it's like that's how I go make a good amount of money in one day. But for me, it's not even all about the money. I mean, like I definitely love to like support my family and like contribute to, this life I build and my business. But if you're only in it for that, it's not gonna work for you. Like it's just not. I mean, even like my mentor, like Athena, like she is so helpful with like payment plans and all the things. Like not gonna try and put her business out there, but she is so helpful, and
Yeah.
it comes back to her in so many other ways. And so like I was so grateful to learn under her, because seeing how like the universe just like treats that kindness and like brings it back in money, or brings it back in like this other thing, or like abundance or friendship or whatever, like that's beautiful. And so that's what I try to do as well, is just like help when I can, and like maybe give someone something for free. Like sometimes I give little mini readings for free at events if I feel like I shouldn't charge that person. Like I just, you give back and you try. But that's one of the things that really piss me off, is like people that are just in it for money, or in it for fame, or in it for to feel special. Because like,
Yeah.
because we can do this, and like maybe we've really worked up to this point to be able to do this, like it, because it doesn't come naturally for everybody, but like to be able to do this isn't just like some special gift that no one else can have.
Yeah.
Like not I don't want to say you're not special because every human on this planet is unique and divine and special, but you're not special like you think
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feel special, like that's not a good reason to be here. So I don't know. There's a lot. I really am good at keeping myself in my own bubble and just not caring what people are doing other than me and like the people that I work with or surround
Yeah.
myself with. Everyone I surround myself with is doing this because it's what they're called to do.
Yeah.
I mean, they want to help people and this fuels them and they're listening to the universe and what opportunities are in front of them. Like this is hard. This is a hard job. And you just gotta be grateful to be here
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, your little one, how many kids do you have in total?
So I have two. One I gave birth to,
Okay.
and then one I'm his bonus mama. So he's 12 and my other one is 2. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And so your biological child, and the only reason I use that term is because I know sometimes with being sensitive that can be a genetic thing. Has he showed any um sensitivities or special gifts? Like has he ever had moments where you're like, "Oh, there I am," like
I mean, I talk to him about my dad all the time, so sometimes I'm like, but I believe that he sees him sometimes because he'll like point to Pop-Up's picture or he'll be like, I don't, why don't we see him? Or like he's very interested in him more recently than normal. He's been like waving out the window a lot. And my dog always looks out the window. There's nothing there, girl. Like there ain't nothing there. I don't know what. He was standing out in the front yard the other day. I was bringing in groceries, standing in the front yard waving. I'm like, okay, we're not inviting anyone in. So like,
there is no welcome sign on this door. So let's
code. Right.
oh.
There's no welcome mat under this door. It's funny. I'm not he loves looking at my tarot cards and he like if he walks in when I'm like, he wakes up from nap time and I'm finishing up a reading or whatever, he loves looking at that. He likes crystals, like, but he's still working on his words. Like, he doesn't really talk as much. So, well, he does, but not like sentences. So I'm really interested to see when he starts fully telling me stories like of what he's seeing because there'll be times I'll leave his room at night because he still needs help falling asleep. um,
Aw.
my boy needs his mama at night. So I sit in his room and I wait till he falls asleep. And there'll be times I walk out the door and I always pray over him and be like, okay, like, sweet dreams, like angels, please be with him. And then I'll hear like, my dad be like, I'm gonna be there in his dream tonight. Or like I'll like hear like different things. And I'm just like, okay, cool, as long as he's good. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know. So I think he's having experiences I just don't know about. And like I do Reiki on him sometimes and stuff. And I see that like he is very like his energy is there.
Yeah.
One day, if he feels like it or wants to, he could definitely tap into something. But I'm never gonna like pressure him. Even with like my stepson, like he has been along this whole journey with me, like, because when we met, it wasn't like this. So he just thinks I'm crazy. He sees like my altar and he's just like, okay, but he likes crystals and he like we talk about ghost stories and stuff and he like sort of is starting to understand what I do, but I think I like letting the kids come to their own conclusion on what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, since you're just like touching upon ghost stories, have you ever gone anywhere like haunted, like knew it was haunted and like when and what was that like, especially having a sensitivity? Because I always love to ask that too, because I feel like everybody has such different experiences. So, like, where did you go and what was that like?
So when I was little, I went to Peabody Island on like a school field trip, which is like part of Delaware or whatever. I don't know. The island is out there somewhere. You have to take a ferry. It was a whole thing, but it's hella haunted.
Is it
They
like
do like
Fort Delaware?
I think so. I think that's
Okay.
where yeah, it's like I just remember being called Peabody Island, but it's like where they had like the cannons blow off, and so it probably is Fort Delaware. I'm not
You
sure.
can't. Okay.
You have to take a ferry to get there, and we went there on a school trip, and I got there and I just knew it was haunted. And like afterwards, I learned that they do ghost tours there at night, and like people get scratched and bit, and like whatever the fuck, like there's bad things up in there. They were on ghost hunters. I'm pretty sure.
Well, it's funny because Daryl Marston, who was on the podcast, he was one of the team leads for Ghost Hunters, and he's in Middletown, and so I was talking to him, and that's what he was saying was one of his first experiences was at Fort Delaware.
Oh, that's probably it then. What?
Well, I don't know if it was an investigation. I think this is when he was I forget. I'd have to listen back to the episode, but I know he said that he was at Fort Delaware for something and he saw like a half body apparition. So like he's like something was like legitimately like just like manifested and he only like had half of a body and he was kind of just there. So like I've heard enough stories about Fort Delaware to be like, oh yeah, that I mean there's definitely stuff there.
Like they take children there on field trips with no parents. Like
We're like,
what
oh,
the I
it's
don't
educational and you might get scratched or bitten.
right. Like my kid is never going on that field trip, okay, unless he's got like a bundle of sage and a bunch of crystals in his damn pocket and a damn
Did
protection
some
spell.
black tourmaline, some black or what is that?
Right.
Black obsidian,
Yeah,
right?
loading them up. It was cool. I remember like that was the first time I ever felt like chills and like that like cold rush feeling and the door closed on us. It was like me and my friend were like trying to be, sneaky and like stay back in one of the things. And we were like trying to run forward and the door like just shut. And I was like, oh no, girl, I ain't. I
Mm.
was probably like 9 years old. I'm like, I ain't doing this. I'm like, this is not fun for me. There was certain things I would like look at and I just was like, I'm not going up there. Like you can't tell me where I'm going because I'm not going there. Like again, I was just sensitive and I didn't know why. I thought I was just a scaredy cat. Like I can't even watch scary movies, dude. Like I'm literally like
Really?
I cannot, like my fiance makes fun of me because he's such a horror freak. He has Michael Myers on his stomach, like tattooed, and like all the other scary characters he lives his life. He's always making fun of me because he's like, why can't you watch this stuff? Like the Conjuring movies? No, no, ma'am.
The
Because I
Conjuring makes my stomach hurt. I will say that.
yeah, it is like all those paranormal things. No, I'm not doing it. So it's funny that like I do this because I always thought I was just a scaredy cat. I think somewhere in me, I just knew that that shit was real. And I'm not
Yeah.
trying to like bring it into my bedroom at midnight, like by watching a damn movie. Like, and not that that
Yeah.
really happens, but just in my brain, I don't want
Yeah.
to. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
like when I see stuff on other people, it's like I'm good. Like I can deal with that. But like I don't know. Something about a movie. But yeah, so that Peabody for dollar or whatever it was, never going back there. And then what else was it? Oh man, I had somewhere else in my brain that I was like going. And I forget what it is. But there's stuff. Oh, museums. I can't really go to museums.
Really?
Yeah,
I mean,
we
it would
went.
make sense because there's a lot of artifacts and I'm sure I mean, obviously there's history to it, so
Yeah, I feel like there's just certain things we shouldn't be able to look at. I don't know.
yeah.
I get a feeling when I look at certain things. Like we went to, I forget what museum it was. We went somewhere in DC. And it was like a bunch of Egyptian stuff. And I was just like, I'm not, I started looking and I was like, I can't look at that. I'm not supposed to see that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think I'm in a space now where I just listen to like my intuition. Like maybe it's just me being a scared little bitch. But no way. I would rather be scared than haunted or see something I didn't plan to see that day. If I'm out with my family at a museum, that's not the time to like let,
Yeah.
but that's I just have boundaries.
But
But yes,
honestly, though, like I don't blame you with the whole Egyptian thing. Kind of going back to like, oh, hold on, technical difficulties. I unplugged myself. Can you hear me still?
yeah.
Okay. I was like, I just heard silence. I'm like, what just happened? So with the whole Egyptian thing, like every time that there's like something on the news and it's like, oh, we found a new sarcophagus and we're gonna dig it up. I'm like, would you just walk into a cemetery and just like dig somebody's aunt or like mom up? Like, no, like there's a reason that they built an entire pyramid and buried people in like hidden tunnels and then booby trapped that shit because like we are not supposed to touch it. Like I don't know how many do not enter signs we need to put up on something before somebody goes, maybe I shouldn't walk in there, let alone pull out somebody's like coffin and then open it up and put it on display for people to like I don't know. To me, like I'm with you there because I'm just like there are just some things that I get the history is cool, but like even like Pompeii, like I'm like I know that these people are like frozen in like ash and stuff, but like there was somebody in there and like you're just gonna like put that on I don't know. I'm like why are we so desensitized that we don't think about these things and we're like, "Oh, what a great idea. Let's put this like body on display for people to stare at for years."
Nope, couldn't be me. I'm
Yeah.
not. I don't know. I don't be, like just like you said, they were in there for a reason. And I'm not the one to pull them out. And I don't want any parts of seeing it.
Nope.
Like, it's not about me being scared. It's about the fact, again, respect. Okay. Like, I'm going to just respect that you did not want your body seen. You put all this stuff in your coffin because whatever you believed back then, you thought it was going with you. Who am I to say it didn't go with you?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I don't know.
You got buried with the intention that it was forever. Like so
And
just leave it alone.
America to pop up out of nowhere years later and take your shit. Like, I'm not, couldn't be
Like
me.
it's one thing
But
if like the ground erodes and like somebody's coffin's going floating away and you're like, all right, we should probably like reel that
okay.
back in and maybe give it like a safe home or something. But like if it's perfectly intact and you're like, let's go Indiana Jones this shit and like hike like into the center of a pyramid and like dodge all these booby traps and you're like, oh well, we're not it says in hieroglyphics like that there's a curse and we shouldn't open this. Let's get the crowbar and let's crank this shit open anyways. Like, and I'm just like, you know what? Honestly, like it may sound kind of bitchy, but I'm like, at that point, you're gonna get what you pretty much asked for. Like when you got King Tut haunting your ass and like you have a series of bad luck, I can't really say that I feel bad for you. I'm like, because you probably should have just left it alone.
Yeah. Well, those Egyptian gods and goddesses are alive and well,
Uh-huh.
and if yeah, they're gonna not be happy.
No, no, I wouldn't mess with that. Like, I just think, just not smart. Again, it just comes back to people just not doing smart stuff. And I was like, it was funny because a lot of this stuff I felt like would happen like while we were all going through COVID. And you know, the internet is like notorious for like memes and all that good stuff. And it was like, what popped up? It was there was something about like dinosaurs that popped up. Like it was like they were trying to take like they were able to get DNA out of like an old like woolly mammoth or something like that. And then something Egyptian popped up where they found like it was somebody who was very influential and I can't remember who it was, but it was like somebody with great power that they had been searching for years, finally thought they found the tomb, and it had like some sort of scripture and it basically said like don't open this because like it's going to bring upon a plague and all this stuff. And like during COVID, like people were making memes and they were like, yeah, don't open that because 2020 has been like enough already. So like let's not open a can of worms. And I'm like, oh, so now you guys are like the common sense is registering that like maybe we should just
Yeah.
not bother with this stuff and not shake things up.
No, I think as long as humans live, we will always mess with something and we'll just have to learn from it. But I am glad that people, again, like bringing them back to like spirituality and learning more and just like hopefully that equals like respect and knowledge and working with those around you to just be like, hey, Mr. Government, can we not open that today? Because like if you look here,
Yeah.
like Mercury is in Gatorade
I
and
literally was just gonna say that. I was just gonna say Mercury's in Gatorade.
let's not do this today. It's just, I mean, there's so many layers to that. But obviously everything happens for a reason. So we're just along for the
That,
ride.
that's
I don't know.
true.
All you can
That's a
do is
good point because I say that often and then I'm like looking at this stuff and I'm just like, oh, you guys are giving me a migraine. I'm like, why are you doing this? It's
yeah,
hard. It's like watching a car crash because you're like, you know better and you're just sitting there and you're like, well, all right. We're like, so that's what we're doing now. We're just
yeah.
gonna piss off ancient gods and, you know,
Sounds
bring
yeah,
wrath upon ourselves.
I feel like it probably only really affects the people who opened the things or did the things.
Probably.
There are some historical like things that you can read about, like stuff that happened to those guys, like that opened the tomb of like whoever. I forget who it was, but yeah, some like those guys all died in some
Oh,
way. You have to look into
yeah.
it. I don't know how to Google that, but whatever tomb they opened was not happy.
I may have
And
to do a podcast on that and be like,
yeah,
I'm going to
like
educate you guys on why we don't touch ancient artifacts.
right, and it happens like all over the world. It is crazy. I'm sure even like here in America, we probably find stuff and
Yeah.
just toss it to the side, or just like, I don't know. I try to like keep my brain out of that stuff because it's just
Yeah.
it's
Like
funny.
poison. It's just poison for your brain, literally.
Yeah, like whatever they're doing out there has nothing to do with me until it does or whatever, which might be a selfish way of thinking, but like if I paid attention to everything on the news, like there's no way I would operate as a human or as a light worker. Like the last thing you want to do is bring fear to people.
Yeah.
So as much as you have to like be telling the truth and stuff, like I'm not gonna like scare you telling you the world is ending because it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there
It's
was a lot.
funny. It's like I really want to now that like we've been talking about this. I'm like, you ever see those like mesothelioma commercials? They're like, oh, if you've ever been affected by mesothelioma, you'll have all these symptoms and blah 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 blah, and it could result in, or I don't even know, or even like the medication commercials where they're like, oh, it's this great like drug and it's all happy, and they're like in fine print, they're like could result in death. I'm like, I'm gonna do a little TikTok and make like my own mock commercial and be like, this is don't open Egyptian coffins or touch Dybbuk boxes or do all this because the side effects could be, and then be like, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Someone
And
needs to.
death. And death.
I know, for real. It's wild out here in the world, but what are you
Yeah.
gonna do?
It is what it is. It be what it be.
What would it be?
But yeah, I mean, like I just think it's super interesting what you do. I love your candles. She makes a gold dust woman. No, gold, what is it?
Yeah, gold
Gold
dust.
dust.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, I'll get all the names down. I'm like, you have a lot of candles, but I'm like a huge, huge Stevie Nicks fan. So when I saw like you came out with that candle, I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I need like 10 of these. And then the candles that you make with like the little tarot cards in them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, those are
So cute.
yeah.
What's your favorite candle you make?
Probably right now I really like Good Vibes Only. I use the spray version like on myself all the time. And then I think I really like that gold dust one too. It's definitely slept on. It's more of like a earthy scent, but it's like
Yeah.
people like the florally stuff. So I don't know. I like them all. It's like choosing a baby. I don't
Yeah.
know. Them all. I think I definitely vibe with the Good Vibes Only like for right now because it's kind of a summery thing. But yeah, that one and Gypsy Soul. That one's like
But yeah,
the
Gypsy
scent I
Soul's a good one.
yeah, that one's like the scent I think of when I think of my business because it's like sandalwood and rose. So it's like a good blend of the two things.
It's
So
kind of like a nostalgic scent.
it
I
is.
don't
It's
know,
very
there's something about it that just is very it just brings up like it reminds you of somebody and it's very like comforting.
yeah.
I don't know, there's something like just nice about it. Like it's soothing.
I like
It's
it too.
cathartic.
Yeah, it's fun to like have like to be able to still like make candles and do all those things and then like have this because I was worried when I first started like doing more of this work that like it would separate like I should make a different business for my readings or something and I was like that would be kind of silly to like have two separate things so when like they could all be together.
Yeah.
So I've been lucky that it's like worked out and people like get it.
Yeah.
So, because it is all like, Reiki infused candles, like intentional and stuff. So it still is part of what I do. But yeah, even like my candle classes are kind of, I always add in some kind of element of like spiritual stuff. And I don't know. I like to just blend like all of that with like daily life, I feel.
Yeah.
It's like Yeah, just make it simple for people, you know? Like if you don't have time to like craft a little intention candle, like you can get this one and this is like the vibes that's in it and because
Yeah.
everyone's on the go. So
Yes. Oh, yes. Especially in today's day and age. So that's what I really liked about your candles too, is that like some of the processes that you'll show on like Instagram, like the little inside look and what goes into making a candle. I'm like, it's just got good vibes all around. Like it's already like filled with magic and just all the good things. And it's like all you gotta do is light it. That's
yeah,
it.
I like to keep it simple, but I mean, I always tell people like write yourself a little note and like put it under there or like do whatever. Definitely make it your own, but yeah, because I found in the beginning of like doing all this, I just didn't have the patience or the knowledge or the time to like
Yeah.
make a whole spell candle or whatever. And I was just like, all right, this is what I'm gonna do then for like other people. And even now, like with a toddler, it's hard to like have time to like fit your spiritual routine in. So it is
Yeah.
kind of nice to just have things.
Yeah. So the last thing that I kind of wanted to touch upon before we kind of wrap up here is obviously like in your field there's many different people who have like different preferences for like divination tools, things that you may use within your practice. So what is like your for you, what is your favorite tool to use? Whether it be like I know you use tarot cards, but is there anything like people use spirit boxes, dowsing rods, they use I'm just thinking like incense and like what are some things that you use to kind of create a space, set it up, communicate, or anything, all of the above, whatever.
So I use music a lot just to get like my vibration right. Sometimes like I don't know, I guess on the way to work or if I'm gonna like do a reading at home, I will always like play music and I have like a playlist of music that makes me feel good or that I'll like sing. And if I don't feel like really talking, I'll just put on like meditation music. So whatever I'm vibing with that day, music really, really helps me. Um, and then I always have like sage with me or some kind of like cleansing herb or smudge or whatever. Incense is definitely a tool. And like I use all of that, like just turn the music on, sage the room, sage my cards or whatever. I use all of that just to like set myself up wherever I am, like even if I'm like in my car, because sometimes it'd be like that. And
Oh
that's just
yeah. Oh yeah.
so so I use all of that to set the space. And then really I just speak out loud. Like people really like it is that simple. Like just speak out loud and just be like, hey, angels of the highest good, or if you know who you're talking to or invoking or whatever, like just be like, can you be with me to set this sacred space? Can you clear this space with me? Like, let's set it up for me to do this thing. I just speak to them like I would speak to like a friend, maybe with like a little bit more respect and without as many cuss words, but like we're there. So no, they don't have any judgment. So I do all of that and then I just sit down where I'm at and I pull out my cards and like the cards are really my helpful like tool. And I was
Mhm.
just telling you earlier today, like, like, well, how do you like do this? And I'm like, well, the cards for me now at the point where I'm at is like just a visual. Like it's also
Yeah.
helpful sometimes when the client is kind of closed off. Like they want the reading, but they don't want the reading. It's like, okay, well, you got to figure out why you want to even be here, but we're, it's all good. So let me like just show you that there is actually stuff on this table that's telling me these things that I'm telling you.
Yeah.
But most of the time they end up just being a visual for like me and the client. And it is helpful to like see the journey and like the where each card is like placed is really interesting a lot of the time. But I mostly just get the messages like through my other senses, I guess. But yeah, so I just use my intuition, my vibe, like just the vibes in general. If something's not right or if I don't feel right, like I will just clear it out and get it out and do my work. But yeah, you just have to like set up sacred space wherever you are. It's like, you can do it on the beach, you can do it in the yard, like if you got to do a reading on your bathroom floor because that's the only quiet place you have, like then that's what you have.
Yeah.
There's no, you don't have to have like an altar or a place of business or whatever. Like you can just do it wherever you want. So I think the biggest tool is really just yourself and like
Okay.
just know that you got this, I
That's
think.
fair enough. That's fair enough. I mean, hey, listen, I mean, you're here. Got to work
Yeah.
with what you got.
Yeah, it all comes back to just knowing that like you are a part of the divine, like you are special and unique, like in that sense, and you know, you are worthy of like getting the answers that you need, or sometimes it's not the answers you want, but you know, spirit will let you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
It'll let
yeah.
you for sure. But yeah, you just gotta trust yourself, I think. And just, you know, if you don't have cards, if you can't afford to buy them, like I always tell people, like print them out, like
Yeah.
literally just print them and cut them or draw your own thing. You can make runes out of like dollar store pebbles. You can do all these really cool things. So it's really not as hard as it looks. And it's not as bougie as it looks either. So
So we don't have to be bougie here. We can get resourceful.
for real. I mean, I have a cute little altar now because we kind of made space in like our bedroom or whatever, but like it was never really like that. Like you don't have to like look on Instagram at all the aesthetic spiritual girlies or
Yeah.
boys or whatever, and you know, you don't have to be like that. It's pretty and it's cute, and if that helps you, like good for you, but you don't have to have that. So
I think that's
yeah,
good advice because I do think a lot of people get caught up in having like certain tools or thinking that they need to have like 20 tarot decks. And I mean, it's true. Just listening to your intuition. I mean, you pretty much are the biggest channel
yeah.
besides, all these other tools. So that's really good advice. Um, but yeah, so I mean, thank you so much for coming on and talking a little bit. I've enjoyed kind of hearing about your journey and just some of the things that you do. And getting to joke around a little bit. I always love having some lightheartedness. And one of the things that I always do on my podcast before we kind of close it out is I always say until next time, and then we say let's get weird. So if you don't mind, if you want to join me, for all of our listeners, before we close it out, I do just want to say we'll post the links to all of Laura's stuff. I believe, do you do like readings for people that are farther?
Yeah, I do email readings.
Okay, yeah. So email readings, like there's I mean Laura's great. I definitely have to get read by you soon because I'm like the last one you did was fantastic. So take her up on it, get scheduled, buy candles, do all the things because the Gypsy Blues is just amazing. And thank you again, Laura, for being on. So until next time, you ready? Okay, let's get weird. Thanks so much for joining us, and we can't wait to talk to you again soon.
Perfect.
Bye.
Bye.